If you're currently trying to learn French, you're probably having some problems with French grammar. This video should help you out. Salut, je suis Rory. Je suis ici sur YouTube et Instagram aussi pour aider les gens à apprendre le français. Moi, je l'ai appris en 2020, lorsque le Covid s'est arrivé. Et pour moi, en ce moment, j'ai 7 étudiants dont j'aide un à un, personnellement, pour apprendre le français. Commençons. So let's get right into it. Simple thing is with grammar is if you're not learning French in order to pass an exam, why do you need to know the grammar rules? That's the first question I ask someone when they tell me they've been having problems with French grammar. Do you actually need to learn it? Do you need to recite that grammar rule in an exam? If not, why are you learning it? Because if you want to just be able to communicate really well in French as fast as possible, then you shouldn't be learning French grammar. Simply because if you want to, say, speak good English, well, you don't learn the grammar rules. I mean, I'm speaking perfect English right now. I mean, not bad English, maybe not perfect. Not bad, just like yourself. And when we're talking, I'm not thinking about the grammar rules. You're not thinking about the grammar rules when you're listening to me. So I don't learn it. The way I see grammar is, it's the backbones of the language, which explains all of the little things in how sentences are set up and how words move, but it's actually not that important to learn if you just want to communicate well in French, which you want to, okay? You want to be able to speak French, you want to be able to read French, listen to podcasts, watch movies, TV shows, communicate with other people. Well, you don't need to know all of the rules behind communicating in French simply because you don't know them in English and you do it in English. So that's the short answer. And the long answer is, if you wanted to learn how to play a sport really well or play an instrument really well, you don't go and read all of the books you possibly can on the rules and the little things you need to do for each sport. And say, you know, if you're talking about soccer or football or rugby or golf, you don't go and pull out a rule book and read every little rule. You go out there and you play, you practice, just like you would with the trumpet. You go and practice the trumpet, the trombone, the flute, and then via practicing, the rules that you need to know you will learn anyway, because you'll have a teacher there with you, and as you move along your journey, you find out the rules you need to know. The other ones we don't care about. You'll learn them subconsciously. With French in particular, and any other language, you've got sentences coming through. Some of the sentence structures don't make sense. A couple of my students who've joined recently, they've told me that, okay, you know, when I had a call with them, the one-on-one call, the one you can book in the description if you want, when they booked it in, they put in as a problem they're having at the moment, sentence structures, grammar, understanding how sentences and phrases are built in French and why French is the way it is. And so I jump on the call with them and chatting with them saying, okay, you're having a problem with sentence structures. You know, what do you mean by that? And they say, well, okay, when I'm trying to read or listen to French, the things don't make sense to me. I don't know what to do. How do I understand it? And I simply say, well, you know, in English, do you know all of the grammar rules? No. So why would you learn them in French? You don't need to. It's sort of a trick from school, because school, as we all went to school, university even, they always want to have an answer where they can simply go yes, no, tick a box, because with that it saves them time, it saves them money, okay, and for them it's much easier to grade something where it's just a yes or no. But with grammar, or particularly with grammar, it's so easy to grade because, oh, if you got the wrong rule or you just messed up one letter, oh no, just give you a 0. But if you got it right, okay, you get a 1. With French though, if you understand 80% of a phrase, which is it's a very good level. If you're understanding 80% of an intermediate level French, if you're listening or reading, then that's perfect. It's like, you don't need to get 100% right. You know, to be able to progress through and get good at French, you shouldn't be getting 100% right. I always say you should be working between the 50 and 80% range. If you're in between there, you've got enough room where things are difficult enough where you're learning new things all the time. And it's also not too easy where you're feeling it's a waste of time and it's just way too smooth, you know, where there's no real bumps in the road. You need bumps in the road to really harden your French up and harden your mind up as well, so you can move through when you don't understand things. So you can work through and actually know how to maneuver around little problems you have in sentences. For example, the book that I help people, my students use, it's called Assimil. And for this book, it's the one I showed in my last video where I was showing off the learning plan. There's a book I brought up in PDF. And that one there, basically, it starts from 0 and it moves you all the way up to an intermediate level. So beginner to intermediate, completing the book at about 1 lesson a day, you can end up in 4 or 5 months, intermediate reading and listening. And with this, each of the sentences in the chapters, because there's about 100 chapters, each of the sentences, there's about 10 of them per chapter. So for each of them, it could be a conversation or a story. You've essentially got words in each of those sentences you won't fully understand. And that's good. You shouldn't fully understand them because you need to learn them. And in order to do that, we don't pull out a grammar rule, and I don't sit down with my students and go, okay, for that full sentence, let me explain to you the grammar rule of why we put that word there and that word there and that word there, and oh, why is it spelled like that? Oh, okay, we have to conjugate that, and then we have to, change that into present and past tense. I don't care. Just like with English, I just want you to learn the language naturally, okay? Because I don't want you in 12 months' time, trying to speak French and thinking of every little grammar rule in your head. No, you can acquire it naturally, and to do that, you have the French sentences with audio as well, because I've noticed lots of my students, their reading level is above their listening. And from what I've seen, it's okay. It's because I've been doing reading materials, or they've been doing listening materials. However, when they do listening, they don't have reading. They don't have writing there. They don't have the transcript. And what that means is their ears are just searching and guessing for certain words. They're not actually learning how to understand the French via listening. I don't blame them for that. You might have something similar going on with yourself where you're trying to learn the French through listening, but if you miss one word in that sentence, in that podcast you're watching, if you miss just one word in that sentence, you can't pause, slow down, check the French writing and see exactly what the word was and then reformulate and go off again and go, okay, that's what it means in English. Let me continue through. No, you lose track. And that means that it's very difficult to build momentum and know that, okay, yes, now I know that word, what it means in English. And so with the Asimo book, French audios, every single time that you're reading the French, you're listening. So that's what my students are doing, right? They've also got the English translation, where just what I was talking about there, we're not trying to learn the rules, we're trying to learn the English. We're merging the two languages basically. What this looks like practically is that the lesson flows through in the French, you listen to it one by one, you listen to the first line item, what it says, okay? And then you've got the English translation. So after you've listened to the first audio and read through it in the French, then you go over to the other side, direct translation in English, and now we're just merging up. So if you don't understand a couple of words, perfect, audio pauses automatically after you've listened to the first line, and then you're reading the English, and you're filling in the gaps and going, oh, okay, the word there in French, okay, I didn't know what that was, I didn't understand the sentence because of that. I pause, I look over at the English and I go, oh, that's the word for it. Perfect. Now this is what you want to do with French overall. It's the exact same thing. If you want to move from intermediate through to advanced, same thing. You're understanding the French through conversations, through stories, through phrases and sentences, versus through strict grammar rules. Because learning grammar is extremely difficult. It's just like if I said, okay, we're going to see in 1 week between me and you, who can play better at golf. Okay, let's say we've never played golf before, all right? And in order to do this, we're gonna test different learning methods. Me, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna practice golf for 5 hours a day with a golf pro, a coach. And they're gonna show me how to play golf, and I'm gonna keep practicing that every day. So for 7 days, 5 hours, 35 hours of practicing the golf, okay? The equivalent for this in French is reading and listening and allowing it to come to you, okay, practicing it. Versus you'll go and you'll spend 5 hours a day for 7 days a week. So that's 35 hours as well. 35 hours of reading rule books on golf and textbooks as well. Let's even do textbooks where they're explaining how golf works and all of the different motions and stuff. Well, who's going to be better at golf if we played on that 8th day? I'll be better every time because I've actually practiced the golf. I've practiced the sport. Same with the French. Let's practice the French. Now, this doesn't mean speaking, because for me, I recommend speaking after you've only got a reading and listening intermediate level, simply because it's actually hard to speak from beginner. It's just like if I was to have to give a presentation. I say this pretty commonly now. I think it's an excellent analogy where I'm saying, okay, if I needed to give a speech to you about neurosurgery or dentistry, I would have no idea. If I just spoke a lot about it, I wouldn't get good at it. But if I did lots of reading and listening for 2-3 years and then I gave a presentation, I would know what I'm talking about. This is why I can speak so freely here about learning French and what's currently working for my students. It's that I'm currently doing it. I've already done it as well. I've learned French myself, and I'm currently and actively helping people. So it's the same thing for your French. To be able to speak good French, you need to have a good reading and listening base. You need to know what the French feels like, what the flow is, what the speed is, the tone, the accent, okay? And so that's where to practice your French, not doing grammar, but practicing your French actively, just like practicing your golf swings. What it looks like is you're reading and listening daily, 30 to 60 minutes a day. Some of my students doing maybe 20, 30 minutes a day, and then an equal amount are also doing 60 minutes a day. And so this all depends on time commitment. That's going to determine how fast you move. But overall, if you're studying grammar, it's going to be very difficult to build momentum simply because you're not getting the full picture of the French. The analogy coming back to it is, for golf, if you're studying grammar in French, you're simply reading golf books. You're not practicing golf. If you are actually practicing golf, you're reading French, you're listening to French at the same time, like I was saying before, so you're reading and listening to come together. You're bringing the English in with the French, so you're getting that direct translation, and you're slowly scaling up. Now, this is something I work with my students at the moment. I've got 7 at the moment. And for them, it's something where I help them move from beginner through to intermediate, doing exactly this with reading and listening. And then I help them start speaking after then. So we don't speak from the start, as I mentioned before, simply because what I've found is, at least for me personally, to get a good flow and French accent, you simply want to start by copying the native speakers. So once I went from beginner to intermediate, it was around in 4 or 5 months. I only started speaking then because at that point, I knew what French flowed like, how it sounded, the accent, and then to begin speaking at that 4th or 5th month, I was speaking the French simply by imitating and copying those native speakers. I recommend you do the same, and in order to do that, you basically want to be starting at a beginner level speaking, as in reading those beginner texts that you started off in reading and listening, reading them out loud after you hear them, okay? Because at this point, your reading and listening is already far ahead. It's already at intermediate level. You go back to start your speaking at beginner level by reading those beginner texts you were once reading and listening to. Okay, now, if this makes sense, perfect. If it doesn't, or you have any questions, put them in the comments down below. I respond to every comment always. And yeah, I hope it was helpful to you, and look forward to seeing you in the next video. Have a good day.